welcome back. As always, I'm Carl with Targets with Attitude. And today, I'm not going to be reviewing a knife. I'm basically responding to a video I saw on another channel. And it's a rather serious subject. This gentleman was talking about the militarization of police officers. In a lot of ways, I really respect this gentleman. He's smart, he's well educated, he thinks for himself, he's willing to do his research. But today, he had a couple points that I had to respond to. Militarization of the police department. What exactly does that mean? Well, he's breaking it down into two parts. One, the cops going to a enforce the law mentality instead of a serve and protect. And two, them going to more military style weapons and tactics and thinking of themselves as warriors. I don't think most of them do, but we'll leave that aside. As far as his analysis of small town SWAT teams and their tactics and their abilities, I can't really argue with most of what he said. These people are well trained on what they have, but they don't have the equipment that Uncle Sam can give their operatives on special teams in Afghanistan, in Iraq, and all over the world. They don't have time to put thousands of hours of intelligence into things before they go knocking on a door. They don't have thermal imaging to let them see where everyone is in the house so they know exactly where their targets might be. Bo is completely right on some of this, so no arguments there. That brings us back to the serve and protect versus enforce the law. Let's face some facts, Bo. Back in the 40s and 50s, Greer, my hometown, had a population of just over 2,000. You had a chance of knowing most, if not all, of people in town, by sight at least. You could take the time to stop and talk to them and be a good neighbor. Be the Sheriff Taylor from the Andy Griffin show in Mayberry, North Carolina. A little podunk little town where everyone knew everyone. Today, Greer is still a small town by most standards, but there's over 31,000 people in our town. 31,000. Are you going to be able to know all those people? Are you going to be able to recognize them on sight? No. Are you going to be able to take time to sit down and talk with them on the street? Maybe, but not as much time as you could back in the 40s and 50s. So, you can't be a neighbor anymore, but you're still sworn to serve and protect. How are you going to do that? Well, quite frankly, the only answer we've left the police departments is to enforce the law. And that's our fault. That's not theirs. We've put them in that situation. So saying that enforcing the laws instead of serving and protecting is wrong I can't agree with you. Some cops are already ignoring some laws. They look the other way when people say feed the homeless, even though the local ordinance says it's illegal, or give a guy a warning for jaywalking instead of giving him a ticket with a hefty fine. Um, they're still doing that. They just can't do it as often as they might have liked. And let's face it, there is a huge wedge being driven through in our country right now. We are in the midst of a very quiet, very passive civil war. The haves and the haves not are being split like never before in our history. And those people who are marginalized, the blacks, the Latinos, the LGBT community, the homeless, they're coming to see the police as the rich people's thugs. It's not true, but that's how they see them. And because of that, yes, there is a war on cops. You can try to argue otherwise, Bo, but it exists. It's not just propaganda. It may not be as bad as newspapers and some police departments are saying it is, but it's real. And I see it. I spent 37 years in emergency medicine, starting as a paramedic back in '79. Even though I was forced out of the field because of health complications following being diagnosed with cancer, most of my friends are still in the field. We still share stories. We're careful not to violate HIPAA, but we share stories. And those who are marginalized believe that the cops are out to get them. And the news media is making it easier because I've got nephews and cousins and uncles who are cops. And every single one of them is a good cop. But for every good cop, well, every 10 good cops, there's one who might slip a little bit. And then there are those who really are bad cops. And when one of those cops slips a little bit, or makes a mistake, or is actually a bad cop, news media pounces all over it and plasters it everywhere. So yeah, those who are marginalized are seeing cops gunning down people like them. And the emotional blow of that keeps them from analyzing and thinking, well, yeah, that guy did it, and look what they're doing. They're hanging him out to dry. 99% of the cops would never do that. No, what they're thinking is, oh my God, cops are going to kill me. Emotional reaction. Completely illogical. Completely understandable. So the cops are getting targets on their backs. And people like my nephew do want to come home to their wife and their kid, but they know they've got that target on their back. And yes, it makes them a little quicker to pull the trigger sometimes. A little quicker than I might be comfortable with. Definitely more quicker than you are obviously comfortable with, sir. But Bo, put yourself in their place. What would you do? You're saying they're believing their own propaganda. No, this propaganda isn't coming from the police. It's not even true propaganda, dude. It's news media's sensationalizing things, and things being repeated piecemeal on social media without all the facts being presented, so that we're getting twisted pictures. Propaganda says that there's someone at the top putting this together and carefully organizing it to present a certain picture and a certain story. That's not happening. It's coming about the same way rumors spread. Think back to when you were a kid. Did you ever play the party game Secrets? One guy would whisper something to the next person in line. They'd turn around and whisper that same thing to the third person in line, and on down the line. And by the time you hit the fifth or sixth person, what was being passed on bared no resemblance, or at least very little resemblance, to what the first person said. That's happening here. That's what your propaganda is. And it's being based on what is actually happening. It's just not all the facts are being presented. So yeah, the cops are taking a enforce the law mentality. People who are marginalized are feeling like the cops are coming after them and targeting them, even if they aren't, or at least no one but bad cops are. And whose fault is that? It's not really the cops. They're doing what we tell them we want them to do. They can't be our neighbors, not to the whole damn town anymore. There's too many of us. They can't know us all. So they have to fall back on something else. And the only thing we as a community, as a country, has allowed them to fall back on is enforcing the law. Maybe that's wrong. Maybe we need to find something better. Matter of fact, you're probably right, we do. But blaming the cops for something that we backed them into, that's as bad as blaming that kid who had a cap gun and got shot, or the man in a dark alley who's busy talking on a cell phone and got shot because he didn't respond fast enough. He ignored the cops because he was too busy with his phone conversation, and all the cops could see was that he had something black in his hand. Of course he got shot. It's a tragedy. It shouldn't have happened. But we've backed cops into a corner. They don't have a choice. So we need to get together. We need to talk. We need to figure out. And until we realize that money means absolutely nothing in the long run, that God is not going to look down at you and say, yeah, well, you had to do this because you're rich. And sorry, dude, you're poor, so you're just going to have to suck it up and, yeah, maybe you'll get into heaven, but you're not rich, so I don't know if I'll let you in there yet. No. God's going to look down and say, dude, you did good things. You had a good heart. Welcome to heaven. Wait a minute, no. You were doing bad things to your poor neighbors. I don't care that you thought you were protecting yourself. You were not following my commandments. No, you're not getting into heaven. Okay, sorry. I shouldn't get into religion. But till we realize that, till we start following the golden rule, till we start figuring out better ways to do it, we are going to have a war on cops. And we're going to have a war of cops on those they see as potential enemies. And it's not their fault. It's ours. We need to figure something out. Some way to make it better for them. Some way to help. Maybe it means getting more police officers so that they can start making friends in the neighborhood. Maybe it means talking about getting better education for those who are marginalized, so that they have better things they can turn to than crime. Maybe it means finding more shelters for the homeless. Maybe it means all of these things. Maybe it means something I haven't even mentioned. But it's up to us, you and me. So come on, Bo. Give the cops a break, and let's find something we can do together to make this better. Just something to think about. In the meantime, gone a little long, so I'll wish you luck. You take care, and hopefully next time we'll be talking about something a whole hell of a lot more pleasant. So, see ya.